Alright, there's a lot going on in the weather forecast over the next few days, so let's just dive right in. The real severe weather that we're going to be seeing is caused by this giant trough that's going to be building into the eastern half of the country over the next couple of days. For the western half of the country, there's going to be a giant ridge. So in a nutshell, this is doing two things. For the Midwest, Southeast, Northeast, there's going to be severe weather. We're going to get heavy rainfall, possibly flash flooding, golf ball sized hail, maybe hurricane force winds, hopefully not tornadoes. In the west, kind of the opposite is happening. It's a giant ridge building in, so we could get some record high temperatures and extreme fire danger. So a lot going on over the next few days, and I always find it helpful to just get the big picture view of what's happening. So this low right here that you see over Minnesota, that is kind of the little seed for the massive storm that's going to be building in throughout the day. So right here, it doesn't really look like all that much. You got some light rainfall, and it's really just over 2 states, so it doesn't look all that bad. But what's going to happen is over really the course of today, this system is going to continue to intensify and just get tons of energy from the Gulf of Mexico. You can see by about 7 p.m. tonight, that's when this low went from that tiny little spot of light rainfall to this huge strip going from the Great Lakes to Texas, where we're just going to have a super long line of severe thunderstorms, heavy rainfall, extreme winds, just severe weather that you're then going to see move across the entire rest of the country in just a perfect line. Going from that strip that went from the Great Lakes to Texas, that line just moves across the southeast all the way up into the northeast. So a lot happening over the next few days associated with this storm. Now we'll look at Texas and Oklahoma area because that's where is really going to be seeing some intense weather today. And it's really going to start at about 7 p.m. tonight. And you can really see it's hitting eastern Oklahoma, western Arkansas, eastern Texas, where this is the area where we're going to get some really large hailstones. Anything golf ball sized and bigger is something that could put dents in your car. So if you live in this area, I'd say it's a good time to park your car in the garage if you have one. There's also possibly going to be some hurricane force winds, so possibly some wind damage. Another thing to look out for if you have loose furniture or something sitting around outside. So that system, remember, it moves through like a wave. So that's going to go into Arkansas, northern Mississippi, and then it really spreads out south, going into southern Texas, southern Louisiana, and then finally moving off into the south, or the southeast by about 1 p.m. on Wednesday. So this area, Oklahoma, Arkansas, Texas, really going to be getting hit by this storm starting at 7 p.m. tonight, so 7 p.m. Tuesday, going into about 1 p.m. Wednesday. That's the key danger for this area. And again, this low is being fueled by just these winds bringing in warm, moist air from the Gulf of Mexico. You can actually see it perfectly on this map. Right here, southeast looks pretty warm, maybe mid-60s. But as these winds get pulled into the low and actually pushed in by this high pressure, you're going to get lots of warm, moist air, really, in a nutshell, that just feeds energy into this system. That's why this is going to be such a big deal when it comes to severe weather. It just has to do with the winds pulling in that warm, moist air from the Gulf of Mexico. So since it's being pulled in from the Gulf of Mexico, an area that's really going to get hit is the southeast, because you're right there. That's where the temperature is going to be in the 80s, mid-80s, and there's going to be a lot of storm development. We're going to start to see it at about 1 a.m. on Wednesday. You can see northern Mississippi starting to see some of those heavier rainfall rates. And then again, it just spreads across like a wave, moving in through southern Louisiana, all of Mississippi, northern Alabama at about 7 a.m. on Wednesday. And then midway through the day on Wednesday, that's when Alabama's really going to be getting hit. We see these areas right here, that's about 0.5 inches per hour. I saw one fact that said some areas could be picking up 2 inches of rainfall in 45 minutes. That's something that's going to lead to some flash flooding, and especially in these areas where you see these higher rainfall rates. Throughout the day Wednesday, going into Thursday, it just moves across the entire region, bringing heavy rainfall to Georgia, South Carolina, and parts of Florida. The thing we got to look out for, obviously in the southeast, always a chance of tornadoes, especially when there's tons of energy in the area, and that's exactly what we have with this storm. So looking at, this is actually one of my favorite maps to look at just because it's lightweight, beautiful. This is showing 24-hour accumulated rainfall. So you can see this wave just move across the southeast throughout Wednesday through Friday. And if we go back to the bulk of this storm when it's really intensified, we're going to be getting an inch to 2 inches in select parts of Alabama and Florida. That is where we could see some of the flash flooding and some of the more severe weather. Alright, so moving up into the Midwest, you can see this low, and as we move through the day, Tuesday into Wednesday, that low really just sits over the Midwest. A lot of the storms we've been following recently have just moved really quickly. It's gone within about 6 to 12 hours. This one hangs out for like 2 days over the Midwest. And you can see there's some really strong winds associated with this low. That right there is showing maybe 30 to 50 mile per hour wind gusts. So that's pretty extreme, and that's going to be driving some severe weather in the Midwest over really the rest of this week. So we can see it. This is that map that shows the low when it's just like a little baby storm. You got light rainfall, maybe 0.1 inches per hour, almost nothing. And then moving into about 1 p.m. on Tuesday, so about right now, still doesn't look like all that much. And then when it starts getting fueled by the Gulf of Mexico, that's where this thing just blows up. You see some heavy rainfall building into Wisconsin, Illinois, and then later into Michigan, later moving into Indiana. So this is really hitting throughout, again, Tuesday night through Wednesday. That's when the storm is going to be affecting the Midwest, really the bulk of it. But the coolest thing to see, the forecast models were showing this yesterday too. Right when you think this low is going to move into the northeast, it actually hops back. It does like this little circle back and then goes in for like a second pass through the Midwest, bringing some more severe weather moving into Friday when it finally moves off into the northeast. So if we actually go into the northeast, we can see this storm really first moves in at about Wednesday at 7 p.m. We get some light rainfall in Pennsylvania, and then that strip that goes from the northeast all the way down into the southeast, that's going to start building into western Pennsylvania at about 1 a.m. on Thursday. Then it eases up for a second and then gets re-energized as that low finally moves into this screen, and we see that extreme severe weather, that perfect line going straight from New York down into Virginia. And then, just like what happened with the rest of the country, that line is just going to move through the northeast, bringing, again, heavy rainfall, extreme winds, maybe some hail in some places, and possibly some flash flooding. Those are the big things to watch with this one. And you can see there's a bullseye over Massachusetts and Connecticut at about 7 a.m. on Friday. So if you're still commuting to work, I don't know if that's still a thing or if coronavirus has you working from home, but you're not going to want to be commuting early morning on Friday. That's when the bulk of the heavy rainfall and extreme winds are going to be hitting Massachusetts and Connecticut. And then finally that low moves off really Sunday. So it's going to be affecting the Northeast throughout the rest of this week into the weekend. Something to watch. So again, going back to this jet stream map, like I said, all of that weather that we just talked about has to do with this giant trough that almost forms a huge cutoff low as it moves across the entire eastern half of the country. But then in the west, we have this huge ridge. Now what that does is just brings in some really warm weather, and wait till you see some of the temperatures on this map. So this is looking at the desert southwest, and throughout the day today, look at that. Phoenix getting up to 100, Yuma 102, and that's going to be breaking some heat records in this area. You would hope that this system would just move off, but it actually is going to get hotter on Wednesday. Phoenix up to 102. Oh man, Blythe 107. Yuma 104. you can't be that hot and not have extreme fire weather, especially when it's mixed with the two other key aspects of fire danger. So you gotta have extreme heat, extreme winds, and really low relative humidity. As it turns out, almost all three of those boxes are being ticked for the desert Southwest. This is showing relative humidity at the surface. And you can see throughout the day Tuesday, this dark brown color just covering the entire region, that's showing maybe 5 to 10% relative humidity. That is extremely dry. So what that does, it dries out all the vegetation, and then if a fire starts, it can just spread rapidly, because dry vegetation probably makes sense to you if you've ever tried to start a fire with wet wood. It's a lot easier to start a fire with dry wood. So that's what this dry air does. And wow, it actually gets worse throughout the day Tuesday. So moving into 7 p.m., we're getting into the single-digit relative humidities. Like I said, the third aspect is wind. This one, so temperature, absolutely extreme, into the above hundreds. Relative humidity, super extreme, into the single digits. The winds, luckily, aren't looking crazy. They're looking, not the best, but you do have these areas of greens where you get maybe 20 mile per hour wind gusts. A lot better than 50 to 60 mile per hour wind gusts. If that was happening, then this would just be game over. So I'm going to be keeping you guys updated with all this weather over the next few days. We got a lot going on. We got extreme rainfall and severe weather for the eastern half of the country, and then we got extreme fire danger for the western half of the country. So if you hopefully learned something in this video and you want to learn more, you can subscribe to my channel. And you can also check out my forecast playlist, where I've possibly already made another forecast video by the time you're watching this one. Thanks for watching.